interested in that cognitive dissonance emotionally when I'm writing, the layering of two things that logically don't go together, but from the dream logic of the story do. And she sort of is maybe like a framework from which I built on that. I hadn't realized that till now. Anyway.
Well, thank you for sharing that because that leads into my next question, which is what impact Tanith Lee had on you each as writers. So I don't know if you want to expand more on that, Julie, kind of what else she's impacted you.
Sure. She gave me permission to do, well, I didn't need permission, but she gave me the emotional, sort of took the uh, visceral, emotional type POV, which is something I love. That's generally how I'm always writing. I'm writing something now that isn't that, but underneath it, it's about the story. Plot of the story is never the story. And I think that's true with Tanith as well. She's playing with all sorts of themes and sort of like even just even wanting a certain emotional journey for the reader. And I often think that really what she's doing is taking her characters and letting them push the story in whatever direction makes sense to her, which is how she ends up creating things that are so unique. And it's sort of how I work. The plot for me is always the last thing. And I think I got that from her. At least she was one of the people who showed me that that's a maybe taught me how to do that. Maybe is a better way to put it. I don't think I ever logically thought about it. I think it's what I consume.
And Karina, do you want to go on how she
Oh,
has influenced you?
yes. Well, sure. Why not? So it's fairy tales for me. So the thing that's really cool about fairy tales as material to mine is they're loaded with symbolism and we inherently know them. They're if you show somebody an apple, if you in the Western, at least in the Western world, they're gonna go, oh, Snow White. You show them keys, it's Bluebeard. You show them a glass slipper, it's Cinderella. You know, the wolf, it's like, oh, it's Little Red Riding Hood. I mean, we know these stories. They're just part of our genetic makeup. They're something that we've grown up with. So what's really cool, what she does is she takes our expectations of something that's familiar and then she subverts them. She flips them and change and in a way that's like, oh, well, of course that makes sense. Well, of course Snow White is like a vampire. I mean, of course the mother doesn't want to let go of her daughter. You know, of course these are the things. And she uses lush language too. So she reclaims stories that have been told in a patriarchal world for a very long time, stories that were originated by women actually. And so she takes back that heritage, and then she also takes back the true meaning of the stories, and adapts them to the modern age, modern sensibilities, modern problems. And I think that that's one of the real strengths of what she did in that particular genre. You know, she's multifaceted. The fact that she could slip from one genre to the next is kind of, I love that idea because I personally, in my own writing, I don't want to be only writing horror. I don't only want to be writing fantasy. I want to write whatever the hell I want to write. Let's cuss there. You know, and I should be able to. This idea that we have to be confined in one genre or one sensibility is it's it's just so old fashioned. I can't stand it, right? You can write anything you
And
want.
it's boring.
It is boring. And the
You
fact
know,
that she's jumping back and forth. She's like, no, you can't put me in a box. You want to try to put me in a box? Good luck. And that is very
yeah.
important as a person, as a writer. That
You know,
something that's important to me as well. Yeah.
and I think I just want to add on to that, you know, in terms of feminism and jumping around, that for me, when I was started reading genre, which for me it's not so much I wanted to read genre as I wanted to read certain kinds of stories that, and sometimes they were labeled genre and sometimes they weren't, but they always had a certain, whatever I was interested in, I consumed. And she was one of the few authors at the time where I didn't have to go, where are the women? Where are the people who I can actually not, like I would read a book and it would have a male protagonist, or it would have you know, the women in the book were maybe written by men in a way that I couldn't relate to. And it was frustrating. And I think finding her and a few other authors like her, Anne McCaffrey, Andre Norton, as a kid, there's some others as well, a little bit of Ursula Le Guin. It was like, oh my God, a breath of fresh air. These are my people, but also they're all different. And we can, having, being an author and being a female author or a storyteller, you can, like Carina says, you can do whatever the hell you want because that's what you should do. That's what's actually engaging to the type of readers I think Carina and I are. You know, we're not looking for formulaic stories. Sometimes I am actually, but in terms of what really gets us really excited, it's the surprise. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the surprise of what someone's doing. God, that is just fucking amazing. And I've never seen it quite like this before. And it's just how, and it should be read by everyone.
There's always something soothing about formulaic, stories to read, but it is, I like how you see it, like that surprise is extremely exhilarating when you really didn't see something coming. And even outside of, like the stereotypical mystery novels, which in itself are formulaic. So I like how you molded, the surprise with the genre, not really knowing what you're getting into, knowing it's going to be exciting.
I do want to give a caveat that I think all kinds of writing have their place. I read stories where I do know where they're going, where, I'll read romance and mystery and all sorts. They all have a place. They can be soothing, they can be supportive, they can be whatever they want to be. But there's a certain kind of writing that, as you say, is just exhilarating.